Hello, this is Jesse Blenn in Costa Rica. As some of you know, I'm a native of Westmoreland, Kansas, and those who have seen my videos some of the people who see my videos probably find them pretty strange. And I'd just like to explain why I believe this, why I'm doing this. Basically, strange things started happening to me actually almost 4.5 years ago, but really seriously about 3 years ago. And I'm just going to basically ask you the question: if these things happen to you, what would you do? When strange things that can't be explained by normal science, normal logic happen, then we can basically take three positions. We can ignore them, pretend they didn't happen, and maybe they'll stop happening. We can accept them, but keep it covered up, which a lot of people do. And a third option is we can say, to hell with it, I'm going to tell the truth. And I don't care if people think I'm crazy. Now, so that's why some people think I'm crazy. Okay, now, maybe you wouldn't do the same I would do. Maybe you would do option 1 or option 2. But I have chosen to do option 3. But the title of these videos, and I imagine there are going to be more than one, is Why I Believe. These are going to be simple, basically my story of how this happened to what I thought was a normal person. Okay? I'm maybe always been a little strange. You know, I didn't stay in Kansas. I went to Costa Rica. I wanted to see the world. I learned Spanish and things like that. Nothing terribly out of the ordinary. I'm a pretty smart guy. Lots of people say I should have gone to college. All in all, the decisions I ended up making and the things that happened to me that weren't my decision all ended up getting me here to where I am, which, for better or for worse, is where I feel now that I should be and I needed to be. Okay? So, I'm going to start with my, if you want to say, strange experiences. And I think the first inclination of these strange things that have happened to me really wasn't anything that happened. It was just a young German guy left a book with me to give back to one of my neighbors, who's a woman named Amy. And this book was called The Third Millennium. And it's written by a guy, a carpenter in Arkansas, named Ken Carey. The Third Millennium. I understand this was the second book he wrote, but it looked a little interesting, and this was published in 1987, 30 years ago. It looked a little interesting. It was a copy, so I actually copied it and read it. And it's amazing because this was actually written by someone with a basically mastery of English. It didn't seem like something that an unemployed carpenter in Arkansas would write. And it talks about why we're here on the earth, and most important, it talked about, if you want to say prophesied, a coming age of information where the secrets hidden from thousands of years will be revealed. And because of this, the powerful will lose their power, and it would lead to the best times in the history of the earth, a new golden age. This is mentioned in that book 30 years ago. Okay? In case you haven't noticed, we now have internet. It's hard to cover things up, and if those of us who are looking for the truth, among lots of obvious fabrications and biased opinions, but those who are really looking for the truth can find out a lot of things that our governments and news media and religions are not telling us. Okay? And the other main thing that I remember of that book, I have it somewhere, I haven't seen it for years, the truth is that it said that these changes were going to start in 2012 and take until 2019 or maybe 2020 to have their full effect. Okay? That was written 30 years ago, and obviously I read this before 2012, probably 2010, I can't remember. Okay? And later on I found out this is what is called a channeled message. In other words, this guy wrote what was, if you want to say, moved his fingers on the typewriter. Those words were not really his. since then I've seen that happen dozens and dozens of times, and it's commonplace for those of us who have contact with other dimensions. But at that time I hadn't had any contact, so I just thought, wow, that guy's got some cool info, and how does he get this? Well, it was channeled, as I recall, from the Pleidians. You're going to hear more about the Pleidians. Actually, there's all this is about what's really happening on the Earth, the ascension into fifth dimension. Okay? Now, I have a part in this, which is totally unexpected for me, right? And I'm going to tell basically how this started without getting into details, because it's too long of a story otherwise. So, nothing special had happened to me. I returned to Costa Rica from 20 years of more or less bad times in the U.S. In the end of 2007. Okay, a year and a half later, so I met my wife-to-be, Matilde, and among her information that she put, we found each other on Match.com. Among the information she put was she'd read the last book you had read, and it was Manos que curan, Hands That Heal. And I didn't know much about it. I thought, oh, okay, she's into some kind of healing stuff, right? Which is okay. You know, that neither attracted nor dissuaded me from being interested in her. Okay. Anyway, we got to know each other, and we ended up getting married. She does flower therapy, where she actually uses a pendulum, which you're going to hear a lot about, uses a pendulum to diagnose people's problems and tell which flower therapy, which are concentrates of flowers, I believe, in brandy in little bottles, you take a few drops a day, which flower therapy will be the best for the patients. Okay. So somewhere in there, she gave me a pendulum for me to fiddle with, play with. Okay. But the first real inclination that something strange was going to happen to me was actually December 2012, which seemed like a strange coincidence. I'm a freelance airship design consultant, and there was a project based in Sweden to build a solar-powered airship known as blimps or dirigibles or zeppelins to fly around the world, basically in competition with the Solar Impulse project. And believe me, it's a much better idea than the Solar Impulse, more practical. But we had a meeting about that, and I went to this meeting in Sweden, fortunately with my trip paid and a little bit of spending money, of course, December 18th to 20th, 2012. I got back late on the 20th, very tired, you know, the effects of jet lag and stuff. And I probably stayed up late telling my wife all the stuff that happened. Okay, the next day was December 21st, which was claimed by some to be the end of the Maya calendar, which I believe it actually was, and that something big could happen. Well, we didn't look forward to anything negative, but some people we know had a group meeting, I think if you would call it an all-night vigil, to get together just in case something did happen. And we went to this. I was very tired. I hadn't recovered my sleep yet. And we stayed up till like 3 o'clock in the morning. Nothing happened. Okay? But I had this big sleep deficit. The next day, whatever happened, but I didn't make up my sleep on the 22nd. The 23rd of December 2012, came on the bus back to our farm in southern Costa Rica, which is a 3-hour bus ride and then about another 45-minute bus ride. And I guess, I can't remember, I probably didn't sleep on the bus, which is not always easy to do. And I got here at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the bus, and I was so tired, I just said, I'm going to sleep what I need. I didn't have anything I had to do the 24th. I was going to return to San Jose, to the capital, the next day, but I could do whatever the next day. So I threw my shoes off and just fell down on the bed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was very much asleep. I'm going to try to rotate this to keep better focus on it. I was very much asleep. I know what it is. I'm looking at myself instead of the camera. I was very much asleep. Oh well. Very much asleep. And I don't remember dreaming. and I heard this big, loud voice. It seemed like it was in Spanish, and it said, La limpieza comienza con el aura. The cleansing begins with the aura. However, that's translated because they did not use the word aura. They used some long word that I knew meant aura. How I knew that, I have no idea. I can't remember the word. I couldn't even remember it then, but I knew what it meant. And while I was hearing that, I had the first vision I'd have ever seen in my life of a blob, kind of like gelatin, moving left to right, going into a thing kind of like a rack, kind of like where they put balls on the end of a pool table. And this was going in there as if it was going to be stored in there, and there's like a stop on the end for it. But before it got to the end, I opened my eyes. I no longer saw that, and my room was almost dark, but there was just a little bit of light left. It was probably like 6 o'clock in the afternoon here, when the days are short. And this voice was down by my feet. I'm guessing maybe 5 foot to the left of my feet. That's where it sounded like. It's from a very loud voice, terribly loud. It woke me up from a huge deep sleep, and there was nobody there. And I jumped to my feet, and I'm not scared, but I'm just impressed by this. What is this? What is this craziness, or whatever it is? And I'm trying to remember that word because I knew it meant aura, but it was not a normal word that I could remember. And I'm going to call my wife and tell her, wow, I've had the farthest out experience of my life. And I couldn't. I was so tired. I just fell back on the bed and went right back to sleep. And I woke up at 10:30 that night and called my wife and told her. Of course, by then, if I'd remembered, I forgot that word completely. Okay, that happened then. I didn't know that it meant anything. I don't know why it happened, but it did. That was my first inclination something strange was going to happen. Okay. Somewhere there, my next event, if you want to say, was, and this gets interesting, was probably a few months later. I can't remember, but it was before I really started playing too much with the pendulum. I install hydraulic ram water pumps. The first one I did were for some people close to San Jose almost 30 years ago, and their daughter inherited their property and wanted me to build a new one for them. So I built it, and I put in a new kind of rubber in it, and it had problems. I had to go back 2 times to fix this stupid rubber, and okay, so that's not good. I can't charge for going back to fix it. So I was here at the farm one morning, and my alarm goes off. It's still dark, and I only put an alarm when I have to get up to do something, and which usually means I have to get ready to go on the bus, which goes by at 6:15 in the morning. And I'm here with my eyes closed, and I'm thinking, what do I have to do today? And then I remember, I have to go back to Alajuela to fix that stupid ram pump. And I'm thinking, any profit I made on that, I done lost it. It's 3 trips back to fix it, and I can't charge, and I have to put in more materials. And then I'm thinking, well, gee, that's terrible. Okay. But my wife, Mati, says everything happens for a reason. So I'm there with my eyes closed, basically talking to myself, and I say, okay, so why does that stupid ram pump keep breaking down? Very clear, I thought that question. And I'm seeing black, right? My eyes are closed, it's dark, I'm seeing black. And here comes this lettering from right to left, going across like this, like the credits at the end of the movie, but moving horizontally. Capital letters in English. And it says, I don't hear a voice, but I can read them. And it says, it's for you to learn to charge for your work. Wow. The wow wasn't written. Okay, that was me. Okay, so something strange is going on here. Months, or at least months later, when I got to talk to my guardian angel, I asked him if he did that, and he says yes. So it's coming to this is pointing to that when we are near sleep or in sleep, our perceptive abilities and possible communications with other dimensions are opened up. Okay? That's important to know because that's the basis for most of hypnosis, also meditation. People who see ghosts, sometimes it's when they're in a partially asleep state. Some people see them and other people don't. I know people who see ghosts, I shouldn't say all the time, but routinely. I've only seen the equivalent of a ghost one time, and believe me, it is impressive. Just for like maybe half a second. Okay? But that's later on, so I'll not include it here. Okay, so those are my first two experiences. Okay? Interesting, strange, but nothing, connecting me with any major changes on the earth necessarily, right? Okay? So, somewhere in there then my wife gave me this pendulum, and I started playing with the pendulum. And the first thing I learned, let's see if I can see my hand here, it's hard to see it, is I found that by putting the pendulum, and she showed me, putting the pendulum near the palm of my hand, it would rotate in little circles. And that was the energy of my hand. That was the only movement I could get out of the pendulum at first. It would move when I did that. Okay? So that convinced me there's something there. And then I saw that my wife used these words written on paper to represent the different flower therapies, and the pendulum would spin to the right or left or not move over these different words. And that gave me this idea, which is basically a correct idea, that there is energy in words. So about that time I started experimenting with the energy of the pendulum, and I learned that I could write the name of things on a piece of paper. First I did it with a ballpoint pen, and if I didn't write anything, the pendulum wouldn't move. But for example, if I wrote the word elephant and put the pendulum over it, the pendulum would spin in a clockwise direction. And if I took that same paper and turned it, let's say upside down, rotating upside down, not flipping but rotating, so the word elephant was upside down, it wouldn't rotate. It had to be in a position where you could read it. But yet, then I tried the word sun. The sun has no top and bottom. So I could write the word sun and rotate the paper, and the pendulum would still rotate. Okay? And there's energy in there. And I experimented with that, and that got me convinced that the pendulum is an indicator of energy. And there's energy in words. I found out that I could, instead of writing with a pen, I can write with the tip of my finger. So you could have energy there that nobody can visibly see. And if you take these words, these are some of my experiments, if you take these words and write them on a strip of paper repeatedly with, the pendulum says, a 40% space in between them. Let's say you write the word sun 4 times on a strip of paper, a narrow strip of paper, rotate it in a circle and stick it together. You now have a circular thing. And wow, does that pendulum spin up around that thing. And see, with the circular things, then you could stack them one atop the other, and you could have multiple equivalents of pendulums spinning. And someday I'm going to experiment and see if we can actually make motors, because there's energy there. If we can actually make motors that will run off of that energy by channeling the energy of things. And basically it appears that the bigger and more powerful the thing you are channeling is, the more energy you can get. Like the sun, the names, the word for the sun would create more energy than the words for the earth, which would create more energy than the word for elephant, which would create more energy than a word for a slug. Okay? Okay, so I started these experiments with the pendulum. At the same time, I started asking questions of the pendulum and getting answers. I'm going to try to limit these introductories to under 20 minutes. So next time, on the next one, I'll start up with my experiences with the pendulum. Okay? Thanks for listening. Continued in part 2.